So today we're going to start actually solving equations, and that is our main goal for this quarter, is solving equations. And I know that we worked with simplifying expressions earlier, but that's going to come into play once we get into multi-step equations, okay? When we're solving an equation, our goal is always the same. And the goal when you're solving an equation is to get the variable by itself. Your goal when you're solving any equation, no matter how complicated it is to get the variable by itself. Today, it's only going to take us 2 steps in order to get the variable by itself. And when we do these steps, it's kind of like in the reverse order of operations. So our first step is either going to be to add or subtract. And our second step is going to be to multiply or divide. So when we're looking at an equation, we're going to ask ourselves, what's being added to or subtracted from the variable? And we're going to do the inverse operation. And then our second thing we're going to ask ourselves is, what is multiplying the variable or dividing the variable? And then we're going to do the inverse operation. Okay? So now we're just going to do some example problems. We're going to start off with things that you probably are familiar with solving from last year, so we can kind of remember what we're doing here. So 3x plus 7 equals negative 5. Are you going to be able to use calculators, you think, on these? Yes. Yes, you can use calculators. I want you to use a calculator. There's nothing wrong with using a calculator. So again, our goal is to get the variable by itself. So our variable is the x, and we want it completely by itself. So that means we need to get rid of the 3, and we need to get rid of the 7. And we're following these steps. So we're doing the adding and subtracting first. So I noticed this adding 7, so I'm going to do the inverse operation, which would be minus 7. So if I subtract 7 on both sides, my plus 7 and minus 7 give me 0, so that's gone. So I'm left with 3x equals negative 12. So again, if you were somebody that struggles with your integers, then in a calculator you could do negative 12 minus 7, and negative 5 minus 7, and you'd get negative 12. Our second step then in getting this variable by itself is to get rid of this 3. This means 3 times x, so the opposite of multiplying is dividing. And in algebra, we show dividing by using a fraction bar. So that shows dividing by 3. I'm doing the same thing on the other side, dividing by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so that's gone. And I'm left with my variable, which is my goal. And I'm doing negative 12 divided by 3, which is negative 4. And that is your final answer. Now, on this lesson and on this assignment, I want you to show these 2 steps. We're going to get to a certain point where I don't mind you not showing these 2 steps. But while we're starting out, I want you to show, what are you adding or subtracting? What are you multiplying or dividing by? Okay? Questions about that then? Yes, if you look over on the board under pre-algebra, our goal is to be able to solve a crazy looking equation like that. So you have variables on both sides of the equal sign, you have distributive property, you have combining like terms, and eventually we're going to get it all the way simplified down to be something that's just a 2-step problem. Okay? These are always going to be our last 2 steps. Alright, so let me give you one of these to try on your own before we get into ones that are a little bit more challenging. So go ahead and try that 2-step equation on your own, please. All right, so what should your first step be here? What's my first step, Tommy? Very good. So hopefully on both sides of the equal sign, you have subtracted 8. So we're getting rid of our 8's. We're left with 3n equals, what's 2 minus 8? Negative 6. So let's do some error analysis. Did you get negative 6 right there? If not, then you made a mistake with the first step. Now we are doing what? We're dividing by 3. Ooh. Dividing by 3. So my 3's are gone. So n equals -2. Again, signs are different, so it's a -2. All right, we feel okay with these types of problems. These, again, are really similar to things that you did last year, and we also have had some practice on DMR this year. All right, let's look at this problem then. X over 2 minus 3 equals 1. X over 2 minus 3 equals 1. This looks more complicated, doesn't it? I think it looks a little bit more complicated because when I see this, I see fraction, and a lot of people I know, when they see fractions, they they get nervous. Our goal is to get the x by itself. We want to look for the adding and subtracting stuff first. So what are we going to do? Plus 3. So my minus 3 and plus 3 cancel. I get x over 2 equals 4. So this x over 2, even though it looks like a fraction, what does it really mean? Dividing. X divided by 2, right? X divided by 2. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. You show that using parentheses. Look how I showed it. You show your work the same in your notes so you know what to do. Use parentheses. Do not use the multiplication sign like this. What does that look like? Another exponent, or another variable, rather. Tommy, I don't like those as much because then it looks like a decimal. So parentheses is the way you're going to see it in algebra. You might as well just get in the habit of using parentheses. So dividing by 2 and multiplying by 2 are canceled, and x equals 8. So I'm going to give you one that is similar to this, but I'm going to make it a little bit more challenging because I'm going to put the variable on the right-hand side of the equation. I know, right? So sometimes the variable being on the right-hand side is enough to throw people off. So let's see if you can do this one. All right, let's see how you did. So if you are someone that this really messes up because the variable is on the right-hand side, this is what you can do. If you take everything that's on the right-hand side, exactly the way it's written, and put it on the left-hand side, and then you take everything that's on the left-hand side and put it on the right-hand side, then you can work it out that way. Okay? So again, you have that option. I'm not going to tell anyone that they have to do that. But if it really messes you up written like that, just rewrite it. But again, you have to take it exactly the way it is. You don't want to change the order of things around. All right. So what is our first step going to be when we need this d by itself? Add the 1. We want to get rid of this minus 1, so I'm going to add the 1. And that gives me 3. And then over here, my minus 1 and plus 1 cancel, leaving me with d over 5. So again, I want this d by itself. How am I going to get rid of the 5? Multiplying by 5. So 5 times 3 is, and we have over here our 5's canceled, so our d is by itself. You're welcome to leave your answer written 15 equals d, or if you feel better about writing d equals 15, then that's okay too, okay? All right, let's do one more type, and then we will be done, okay? So in this one, sometimes these mess people up. Why do you think this one might mess people up? Any ideas? Tommy? All right, so at the minus 4y. Sometimes when people are looking, and I have them trained to look for my adding and subtracting first, doing an add and subtract first, they look at this quickly and they see, oh, a minus 4. I need to add 4. But is that what you need to do here? Right. This 4, and more specifically this negative 4, is multiplying your y. So that needs to be your last step. Your first step needs to be getting rid of this 7. So since this is a positive 7, you are subtracting the 7. That's right. You're doing the opposite number. Opposite of positive 7 is a negative 7. So that's going to give me, don't lose that minus sign in front of your 4, a negative 4y equals 12. And now what? Not just Tommy. Not just Tommy. Divide by negative 4. So now we haven't divided by any negative things yet or multiplied by anything negative yet. So if you're multiplying by a negative 4, you have to divide by a negative 4 to get rid of it. You have to multiply and divide by the exact same thing. So y equals negative 3. Last one then. What if you have this? So besides the fact that the g is on the right-hand side, that kind of messes people up, there's not a number in front of g. So you could, if you wanted to, put a 1. If there's not a coefficient, you could put a 1. Are we going to worry about that negative sign in the 1 right now, though? No, what's my first step? Getting rid of 5. So I'm going to do what? Minus 5. Also, if you're someone that this kind of confuses, maybe a barrier would help you. Down that equal sign. Okay, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. Keep it balanced. So your 5s are gone. You're left with negative 1g, or just negative g, if you don't need the 1 in there. What's negative 2 minus 5? Now, how are we going to get rid of that negative sign, or the negative 1 in front of the g? Divide by negative 1. Very good. So now, yes, it's going to be a positive 7. Negative divided by negative is a positive 7, or g equals 7 is fine. All right, so I'm going to give you your paper, and once again, you have 11 problems, and I want you to show both steps just like we have done in these notes.